I like orcs, but I don't like paying $6 per orc boy. So in this video, we're going to be looking at 5 Ork STL creators and me sharing a few of my thoughts and discussing on what I like about them, what I don't like. We're going to be starting off with Puppetswar. Puppetswar was one of the first Ork creators I started printing from. Like a lot of creators, their kits are designed to be mixed and matched between all the different kits. So you can, get a lot of variety if you have quite a few of their kits. I've been subscribed to their Patreon for about 9 to 10 months last year, but I stopped because I started to feel like they were getting a little repetitive and I was just running out of time to print everything, and so I was just getting this mad backlog of STLs, so I needed to stop subscribing to some Patreons. Now they've got 3 Patreon tiers, but they're basically just the same, except the first 2 have limited spots and they're cheaper, so it's kind of to promote filling them up earlier for like when they first started out. Luckily for me, I was able to get in for $11.50 a month. Like I got into, I think, the 2nd tier, so that was really helpful. They have great proxies for like 40k, like the Storm Boys, Looters, Bikes, Mega Knobs. Particularly Mega Knobs, I thought, like, just great value for money, like $60 for a kit, or I can print 3 off pretty easily. They also do kind of their, they really like to do their take on pop culture, so they've done like Ghostbusters. There was like Star Wars Pod Racer. What else did I? Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Batman. So they did Batman, and I think Back to the Future as well. So like, yeah, if you're into that stuff, like into pop culture and things like that, you can probably now and then find some orcified versions of just those different things. What I really like about these orcs is that they are swole as. Can't say that. Like, these guys are jacked, like they're working out, like you can see just how muscular they are when you put them next to like a GW boy. But I just feel like, they really show like orcs are this menacing blob of muscle. When I first started printing, the supports on these models, like chef's kiss, like they're quite strong in terms of like, there's just, it almost feels like they're over supported, but I just remember like peeling them off, like you get that ASMR vibe that I don't know how to, I can't do with that, but like just, they're supported really well, so it makes it really easy to print. One of the things that's quite unique about them is they release 3 factions on their Patreon each month. So one like Orc, one kind of like Alien Tyrannid, and one kind of like Space Marine, or like whatever you want to call them. So that can be a huge plus if you want to slowly collect those 3 different armies and amass those files. But it can also be a negative, as if you're just looking for their orcs, you're getting 2 other squads where you could subscribe to a different creator and get like 3 or 4 orc squads. So they're just not purely dedicated to orcs, but they're still great. Now I'm trying this interesting rating system, but I would give we're gonna go a Waaagh, like how orky it is, just the value, and this is value for orc. This is orc value, so I should say orc value. And then how easy they are to print and assemble. For Waaagh, I'm gonna give it a 4 out of 5, just because like they are a staple to my army in terms of just like adding them in. To value, I'm gonna give a 3.5 out of 5, just because you only get 1 squad a month. There are other Patreons where you could get multiple squads per month. And finally, printing and assembling, like, it's pretty easy. For the most part, they don't have many pieces, which is great. Like, that's what I prefer. So it's like a body and then the hands and the head, and that makes it really easy to assemble. There's less pieces you need to put on the build plate, so huge win there. Number 2 is Mr. Module Orc. I was a Patreon for a few months, and back in November I backed their Kickstarter. So I've spent a lot of time printing their models, and now I'm in a space with them that like kind of just like, they don't sponsor you, but they're giving you access to use the files for like videos and things like that. So it's kind of like a symbiotic relate. They've got their own skirmish game, Module Orca, and so their files, I think, are designed to be individual files, not kind of like a squad. So the scale is a little bigger, but in that they've got the flavor of the different factions that you would have in 40k, but like they've obviously given them different names. So they've got kind of like the armored ones, like they're like the guns, the hunters, like this science faction. So there's kind of like these docs and like cyborg guys. The Goblin Revolution, which is one of my favorites, and then they've got like a Speed Freaks kind of one and like a music one, or I don't know, I don't fully understand, but like there's just a lot of like flavor and uniqueness, and it's not just like the same, or you can get like huge, lots of different options. Like with Puppetswar, each kit can be like mixed and matched, so there's just like you subscribe for a few months, like you can get so many different combinations. They also are a pure like orc creator, so it's goblins and orcs every month. It's a bit more expensive, like $18 a month, but you're getting a lot of models in that. They do also do orc terrain, which I've started printing some roads in FDM. With the Kickstarter, they do like 2 factions and then some terrain to go with that. So I think it's Speed Freaks and the Science ones. In terms of the printing and ease of assembly, they're pretty good. Like, I haven't had too many fails. I think the tricky part is if you're trying to use them for like as proxies for an army game. For me, it's Grimdark Future, like 1-page rules, 40k or any other things, and you want to print a lot. The scale is a little bigger. And so if you want to scale them down, particularly the goblins, like they're nice because they are big, makes it easier to paint, but they look really funny standing next to some like of my GW boys and things like that. So I've tried to scale them down, but in scaling them down, like then you got to like deal with supports and stuff like that. So like that's obviously I'm using them for my own purposes, so that's like not on them. But I think the other thing that I would like to see, particularly with like just a lot of the models, and I'm not an STL creator, I don't support files, so I don't actually know what would run into it, but just having fully assembled supported models. Because when I was printing a bunch of the goblins, there's just a lot of different pieces, and yes, the build plate isn't that high, and so you can print faster. The post-printing process of cleaning all the individual parts, removing the supports from lots of different parts, and then gluing and assembling actually like does add a lot of time. And so I'd rather be able to just put 20 goblins on a plate, remove all the supports, cure, wash, whatever, and then just have them ready and not have to do any like post-printing assembly. I asked them about it and they said like the extra supporting to do that, it's additional costs. So I understand that, but yeah, that would be one of the things that I would really enjoy if I could just print models fully assembled. Because one of the things that was really tedious was like 2-handed weapon guns, like trying to hold them in position to like get them in like the hand and the gun in the right spot. In terms of the Waaagh, I'd give it a 4.5. Like it's just lots of orky goodness, lots of different factions. Like you can find something that you like. They also do their own version of like pop culture stuff. So they've done like Kratos and Atreus from God of War. They've done the Vulture from Spider-Man, and they've done some other stuff. So there's a lot of like pop culture stuff in there. So like both them and Puppets were really great for like uniqueness. In terms of value, I'm gonna give it a 5 out of 5 just because you get a lot of bits in each release. I think like if you're purely trying to print an army, like I would just get the Kickstarter. That would give you like it's a lot of money initially, but then you'd be printing for a while.
My life for the Horde.
In terms of assembly and printing, I'm gonna give it, I originally gave it a 3.5, but I think I'll give it a 4 because like the supports are still good, and the assembly, like I think that's, yeah, it's a bit more tedious to assemble because for some of them, particularly the goblins, there's a lot of little bits.
This was such a pain to put.
And just trying to get them all together, but like that comes in the territory of models. So like they're probably one of my favorite creators. If you enjoyed watching this video, feel free to drop a like. It lets me know that the stuff I'm doing is good and people like it. And if you also like painting orcs, I'm trying to get all my orcs painted for October. We have about 12 days left as of recording with 40 orcs to go. Another creator that I haven't actually printed too much is Megzyke. Now Megzyke does not just orcs but some other models, but I just hit them up and said, hey, I'm looking at orc for October. Would I be able to get access to a few of these files so I could like print them out and show them off? And I did. I got 2 of the bosses, so like a looter pirate kind of guy and like a war boss. And they were pretty easy to print. The support's good, no fails. One of the things I liked, which other creators do as well, is for like big bosses and things like that, they do like a scene in Lychee Slicer, so you can just load that scene and it's the full build plate with all the pieces. You don't, like, it saves you a bit of time. Like I get you could just load all the bits, arrange, and it'll move them all around, but that's just a nice way of saving a bit of time. I kind of like that. Like time is very valuable, so things that save time, awesome. Make sure you also don't miss a bit. Their Patreon is $15 a month and you get 2 squads, so it's not always 2 orcs. There's bit of the downside in that, but I really love how the files go together. It's not the classic like socket and ball joint. It's like kind of almost like Lego. I don't know how to describe it, but I'll put some B-roll in where you can see like the squares and the bits all coming together with the war boss. I feel like what's really good about their orcs is use them for like your leaders, your centerpiece models, your models that you want to stand out from the rest of your horde. that you want to be unique. So that's why I really love like the War Boss and like this Looter Pirate. Like I don't know what I'm going to do with him in terms of gaming and stuff, but I just love how, yeah, they just stand out. And that's what you do. You want your leaders to stand out. They also have these cute little squigs that they basically treat as dogs. I've printed a few out, and what I think I'll do with them is, rather than use them as their own individual models, use them as kind of like the basing material. So, or like objective markers. So I think that's like a real fun way to just use them. Like I said, files printed very easily. If I was to rate them, I would give them a 4.5 for the Waaagh, just for like, I think the uniqueness of their characters. Because the other two, like Puppets War, Modular Orc, are like as great as they are, I think because they're churning out so many orcs, there's a bit of repetitiveness with some of the faces. And I feel like that's not like a downside, but I just think, yeah, just using some of the exotic stuff, super fun. And maybe it's just coming out of using a lot of Puppets War. In terms of value, just particularly from the orc value side, I'm gonna give them a 3 out of 5, just because you're already getting like 1 or 2 things a month. Like you're probably better off just buying their STLs individually rather than subscribing to the Patreon if that month doesn't give you the orkiness stuff. But I feel like you're going to their Patreon to get the unique character that you want to fill a specific leadership role in your army. But they do have other like squad stuff and boys as well. So it's just kind of picking and choosing. Like this is not me like trying to say bad things about different creators. Like I feel like, yeah, in terms of me looking from the lens of getting orcs, the different creators will serve different purposes. And yeah, it's up to you. Like what do you want your orc army to look like? Now the next one, these two I have not printed, but I've looked at them and looked at options, but like I'm just not oversubscribing to creators because I don't want a backlog of STLs that I never print and I've spent money on. But it's Gear Guts Mech Shop. Gear Guts Mech Shop. They were one of the creators I've seen. I think there was a play on tabletop game where some orc player had a lot of their stuff printed. Oh, I can't remember. It was, she had like, it was like a blue, like a bright blue like armor and stuff. I'll have to put some B-roll if I can find it in the editing process. But these orcs are good. Like their design is very unique. I think personally for me, I don't really like the design of the orc faces and just kind of the sculpt, but I like the vehicles, like the Killer Can kind of equivalent, and just like those kind of things. Like if it was me choosing them, I would pick them purely for, yeah, just the things that don't show their faces. But it just depends on your orc army and your aesthetic. I think just, yeah, they would look very different put next to all the other models that I've printed. And so that's not to like put them down. It's just they've gone for their own unique style of designing. Their Patreon, $16.50. I feel like this is obviously in Australian, and that's pretty standard for Patreons. You get quite a few packs when you subscribe. So we go through the thing. I think the Waaagh, I'm going to give it a 3.5 out of 5 just because of, yeah, just my personal preference with the orc designs. For value, I'm still going to give it a 4.5 just because you do get a lot of options each month. And for printing and ease of assembly, I can't talk about that. You'll have to ask other people. The last creator I wanted to highlight was Blue Sky Minis. Now, this was one that I looked at when I was looking for the orc proxies when I first started printing last year. I didn't go with them because I think Puppets War, just the allure of the Tyranids and Space Marine side as well. Okay, I thought I wanted like a variety of STLs, and I thought I had enough orcs already. One of the things that drew me to them is they have a welcome pack. So when you first subscribe, you get access to this welcome pack of like 38 models. And so I think when you find a month that you really want the files for, it could just be worth getting them for 1 month, get that welcome pack, and you've got a whole bunch of orc files there. To me, I feel like they resemble GW orcs the most, but it could just be in their like rendered pictures of their files. They've got the same kind of color plastic as GW, and that could just make me think that it looks like that. But they're pretty close. So yeah, I like their designs. For me, I think I've got enough orcs at the moment. But if I was starting from scratch, I think I would add them in. So I'd give their Waaagh a 4 out of 5. Value 5 out of 5 purely for the welcome pack. I think, yeah, for $16.50 for 1 month to get like 50 models or so. Bargain. And then printing and assembly, I did see they had a diagram for some of their bigger models, which might make it a bit helpful. A lot of the time it's pretty intuitive, but an additional diagram doesn't hurt. Let me know your favorite orc creators in the comments below. If you want to watch some more hobby videos, you can click over here. Otherwise, thank you for watching and happy hobbying.